But the senator, while indoctrinated, could not explain his toxicity.
This is HBR News number 222. Gillette takes a new direction. HuffPo gets sued. Heterosexuality is canceled, where we reflect on the stories of the week and give it the Badger treatment. Uhuru, y'all, and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. I am your host, Brian, and I'm joined by, as always, my esteemed panelists, Hannah and the two mics. We have a great show lined up for you guys today, so please be sure to continue the conversations both in the chat as well as the comment section. On this week's HBR News show, where we have triumphantly returned from a grueling yet very successful ICMI 2019, we will be talking about the honks of the week, including the Huffington Post getting sued for defamation over Brett Kavanaugh, Gillette deciding to change their marketing focus for completely incidental reasons, like not at all related to anything that you might suspect, you bigots, toxic gamergaters in the classroom, heterosexuality is just not working, and more. So stick around, it's going to be a good time. And be sure to join us afterwards for the patron-only after show. So we got two different topics. I'm going to give people choices. There was one that I picked because I was interested in reading through it. And then there was one that was just came across my desk today, which is also could be really fun for the patrons. So number one, Wired.com's Adam Rogers penned a piece for the site that seems like a little bit of a departure from the normal tech-oriented fare that Wired is known for. It's entitled, Actually Gender-Neutral Pronouns Can Change a Culture, where he argues that using the newspeak of progressive orthodoxy can actually give people a new, more inclusive way to view the world. And I'd be really interested to see
I think we might need an alternate spelling of actually, like with an H in there somewhere to read actually. It's like we need an alternate spelling of literally.
Yes, actually. Or if we really want to lower ourselves down, and just get in the gutter of the, I guess you could say, the lowest form of discussion, we could take a look at the dramatic posts written by one Zoe Quinn and released, well, they basically came to me this morning. My friend Neela, who is our wrench holder, she sent this to me in a DM, something I didn't really look into because typically I don't care, plus I've been blocked by Zoe Quinn for a long time, but I gotta tell you a little bit about it because it could be fun to go through for the lulz. The backstory is this. Yesterday, I think it was yesterday, a non-binary feminist game developer that's not Zoe, named Natalie something, came forward bravely on Twitter, not the police, to accuse legendary game music composer Jeremy Soule, I think it's how you say his name, of rape on a blog post. Now Jeremy Soule is known for his music on Oblivion, God of War. He did a lot of other really great music in Western games. Those are the two that jump to mind right off the bat. But I don't know, Mike J, do you know of any other music that he's done? Do you know who I'm talking about? Jeremy Soule?
Vaguely, I think I saw, well, it was either him or his stuff done at Video Games Live once, but it was God of War, and that's like the big one. Yeah. As far as I can remember.
And Oblivion, and there was some MMO too. It might be WoW. Yeah, he might have done music for that, but I'm not sure. But anyway, so yeah, Jeremy Soule was accused by this woman of rape in a long blog post that she put together. And you know, when somebody writes a blog about you claiming that you raped them, that's basically the same as a police report. It's basically the same thing. Now that it's out there, Zoe Quinn also conveniently decided to come out of hiding, as it were, to accuse one indie dev named Alec Holakwa of all kinds of really weird and seemingly abusive things. So I thought that, you know, it could be fun to read because she's a bit of an author, kind of dramatic. We'll let you guys decide which story that we'll look at, because I don't think we have time for both. Either Wired.com's intellectual piece or Zoe Quinn's galaxy-brained piece on this gentleman named Alec Holakwa. Now, also, if you guys know who Alec Holakwa, whatever, if you know what he's actually done, maybe let us know in the chat. Oh, apparently Jeremy Soule did the music for Knights of the Old Republic as well. Anyway, if you guys would like to be a part of that in our after shows, maybe consider becoming a badger yourself by going to feedthebadger.com. That's feedthebadger.com. Start a $5 subscription level. That'll get you into the Discord, which is a great community, and there's always a lot of fun stuff going on there. And if you don't want to wake up one morning to find yourself unable to find our content because YouTube finally dropped the axe on our channels, please go to badgerfeed.com. That is badgerfeed.com. So let's get into the stories. If you guys could please hit that like button right meow, that would be great. And yeah, we're just be sure to also send us a super chat if you want to add any commentary to the story. So we're going to start by talking about Gillette. There won't be a PowerPoint this time because the wife who normally puts those together is not in town, and I suck at building those things. So I'm not going to put you guys through the torture of seeing what a PowerPoint made by me would look like. And so, yeah, we're just not going to do that. So, Mike J, please take the helm. Let's talk about Gillette.
If we have to. So, after shaving $8 billion off their bottom line, see what I did there?
They shaved it. I see, because they're a razor company.
Because razors.
You did the thing.
Except they're not as sharp as they once were as a company. Anyway, so as a result of the failed feminist marketing stunt, Gillette has announced they plan to switch gears. So according to the Australian and New Zealand branches of the razor company, they plan to market in a different direction, at least for the time being. So with Associate Director, Brand Director Manu Aren stating that the new direction would be shifting the spotlight from social issues to local heroes like firefighters and personal trainers.
Personal trainers?
Never ever thought of a personal trainer as a hero, but hey, to each their own. In the company's new focus, we have a very clear strategy when it comes to how we authentically connect with our customers. We will continue to talk about what is important to Gillette, and that is representing men at their best and helping men do their best. That is not changing. We will continue to do that and demonstrate it in different ways. End quote. The changes are already evident with Gillette ads popping up featuring firefighters and military men.
Now, we understand the firefighters thing because no matter how poor you are, firefighters will come to save your home if it happens to be a blaze, except in extreme circumstances. But personal trainers are very much something that only rich people know even what is. I suppose they have to do this because they get the most money from the people with more money than sense. But I guess that might explain why they decided to go woke in the first place, because they were listening to the wrong people, right?
Yeah.
There you go. They're rescuing rich people from the tragedy of having no self-control.
You know, somebody, it looks like from what I'm hearing, somebody watched the eGuard Watches ad and thought, wow, firefighters and soldiers, that sounds like a really good way to sell something to men, to celebrate the best in them. It's pretty interesting. And also to the personal trainer comment, I just had a thought. What if they made an ad that only focused on male professions that only the rich enjoy, like life coaches, personal trainers, and I don't know what else there is, masseuses maybe? Like private jet pilots,
butlers.
Yeah,
maids.
masseuse is not to be confused with massage therapists because one works on rich people and the other works on people that got injured at work.
Yeah.
Avocado suppliers? I don't know.
Pedophile Island management and staff. Oh wait, is that too soon? Is that too soon?
Too soon. And demonetized.
Well,
I don't know. I think that happens to us when we set the live stream up every time.
Oh yeah, I'm joking. I know it's already done. The hammer's already dropped.
I was gonna say, I know that happens with mine. As soon as they say HBR talk, it's like, oh no money.
You lose like 2 cents per episode, even if you get them. It doesn't fucking matter the kind of numbers we get, honestly.
well, to be fair, I don't think that they'd be selling any razors on Pedophile Island, considering I don't think anyone needs to be shaved there. But
But at least Jeffrey Epstein wasn't rude.
Yeah, at least he wasn't rude. He's he may own an island where there are underage girls, but at least he's not a monster.
Was he ever banned from Twitter?
Probably not. I don't know. I who's following him on Twitter? Anyway, but
The Clintons.
so do you guys think that this is it confirmed that this change was due to the fact that due to losses from the the best a man can be ad campaign, and maybe even the one that followed? It's not really known for sure, right?
But I mean, we're all kind of standing around going like, yeah, we kind of know what happened here.
Yeah.
So in their list of heroes, did they say anything about dads?
No, it's about jobs. So these are human
Obviously.
doings. These are human doings. From what they're saying,
Well,
I guess we'll have to wait and see.
To a transsexual. There was a guy who taught a transsexual how to shave. That counts as dad, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
I don't think it's about him, but yeah, it was the young man's dad. Yes. So
I was being sarcastic there, by the way. That's as close
There
as
you
they
go.
can get to dad.
it's the best that they can get.
I would love to see him do a commercial honoring dads without any lecturing, without any. This is the way a dad should be. Just dads, we appreciate you, but I'm not gonna hold my breath because that's unhealthy.
Yeah. Well, I guess you know what, that would be great to see. Yeah, I would, if they did that. I would do that. Would be a story on our show for sure. I'd say, look at what Gillette did. It deserves praise because, according to Elon Srilovitz, the CEO of eGuard Watches, that to celebrate masculinity is it's a risk. It's a risk in that industry, in sales, marketing, entertainment, whatever. And he's been, for the most part, he's like persona non grata. But anyway, we'll have a video up about him later on. But with that said, I thought, this was definitely worth commenting on. And I look forward to see what Gillette does. It's either going to be something that we can just say, hey, good on you for changing it, or absolute cringe that we'll revisit.
It occurred to me that this is the one thing that mothers definitely can't teach their sons, or at least they're the one thing that modern day feminist mothers will admit they can't teach. Because there's always people are trying to find wholesome ways to teach parents to raise children in whatever media they're doing, and everyone knows that nothing but a mother can teach a daughter about the tribulations of puberty.
Mm-hmm.
But we've stripped down everything that a son can teach, that a father can teach a son about the tribulations of puberty, except shaving. And I think this is like the last...
the last bastion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're even working their way at that. Oh, I don't know.
Well, I guess, time will tell. But with that said, let's move on to the next story. And we're going to be talking... It's Mike J. It's you again. We're going to talk about... Somehow we got to talk about Gamergate again. And how it's infiltrated the classroom. So, Mike J., if you could...
This one is quite an interesting piece. I really kind of wish we could do an after show about this because there's a lot of meat to discuss here, and I'm even afraid my 3-paragraph write-up didn't do it justice.
Oh, really?
Yeah, every paragraph is a spicier take than the last, and it comes off as this weird sort of quasi Gamergate and alt-right fusion article, like. It even references, you remember the New York Times article from, what is it now, 2 months ago?
Are you talking about...
Right rabbit hole. And
yeah.
It had the collage of really uncontroversial YouTubers.
The guy who was rescued from,
yes.
the evil clutches of controversial figures like Tim Pool.
Jordan Peterson and Tim Pool.
Stefan Molyneux and Martin Friedman.
Yeah, and they even reference that in this, but like I said, I'll go through it and then we can kind of dissect it a bit more. So in a piece by The Verge by Megan, okay, I'm going to try here, guys. Farouk Manesh.
That sounds okay.
Several college teachers and academics discussed the heinous behavior of suspected members of the insidious consumer revolt against gaming journalism known as #Gamergate. Professor Bo Ruberg of UC Irvine recounts her horrifying experience as she was filmed in her own classroom. How did Professor Ruberg know those filming her were linked with Gamergate? Good question. She never elaborates. What she does go on about is how she feels in danger, a danger which she also never fully explains. Quote, I'm watching out for potential problems. It makes me sad to say that because I truly love teaching undergraduates. But it's hard to tell when you're teaching a student who is open to new perspectives and when you're teaching someone who has the potential to do harm.
What?
Yeah. So, if you
no
can't
spoons
there,
was weird, but now it's. I mean, is it no fingers? Because fingers can do harm.
I mean, everyone has the potential to do harm. I mean, just because the potential's there doesn't mean that that means anything.
The
Apparently,
professor has the potential to do harm.
apparently,
Yeah,
if the kids are fully indoctrinated and submit to the superior intellect of the professor, they can't do harm. It's the ones that disagree that are scary.
Well, I mean, naturally, they're
Yeah.
the troublemakers.
I just think
so,
it's funny that she's in fear over this filming because like there were times when I had students that were gonna miss class and I filmed myself in teaching and like all of this stuff, took pictures of all of the stuff that I put up on the whiteboard and all of the classroom materials and put together a little package so they would have something they could use to keep up. And I expected students to be in there that, well, of course, I had students with cameras, but who might be taking pictures or filming. It's kind of silly to be giving a presentation in front of a crowd full of people on a regular basis and think that you may never be filmed or recorded. They might even be taking notes.
This is sort of where the privacy argument and the Big Brother argument rub up against each other. It's like no one wants to live under a Big Brother state where everyone is surveilled, but at the same time, when you point a camera at someone and they immediately go into put that camera away or I will destroy you, you kind of feel like they've got something to hide, and it's difficult to get into in such a short rant as I'm doing right now. But as long as it's not one way, you know, what I mean? As long as people are determined to surveil you, but the moment you pull a camera on them, they go, "Whoa, you can't do that." That's when you know there's something is amiss.
I just want to know what this poor lady's going to do if somebody brings a smart pen into her classroom.
oh my goodness.
You know, Ben just gave us $5 and he asked this too. I don't know if the article goes into this, but he asks, what was she doing in her classroom that needed to be filmed? Or
Funny you mentioned that, Brian.
Oh, okay.
I can formulate a bit of a guess.
A hypothesis.
So, if you got the Patreon article up, it's the third link that I have there, informatics.uci.
Hold on a second.
This will give us a little bit of a snapshot of who we're dealing with, who Professor Ruberg is. So we start. Professor Bonnie Bo Ruberg, they them pronouns, is broadening the conversation around digital media, expanding our knowledge of the diverse cultures at the heart of technology and the individuals who use it. Quote, technology is inextricably linked to issues of gender, sexuality, and identity. Ruberg says, the way that we design, use, and talk about technology is fundamentally political and potentially radical. Drawing from intersectional feminist frameworks, Ruberg's work promotes social justice in and through digital media. With a background in the humanities, technology reporting, and community activism, Ruberg is an interdisciplinary scholar who combines insight and inspiration from a variety of fields such as media studies, queer studies, American studies, and the digital humanities to explore the culture implications of technology. And it just gets worse when you keep going down.
Oh yeah.
I think now you got kind of an idea what was probably going on in that classroom that necessitated filming.
Okay, Mike, Dr. Anwerkam, you were saying?
All I took away from that was in and through digital media, which I guess because of the sexual annotations and partly because of the deeper metaphorical ones. Just go in there, you go through it like a fucking cat, and not one of the not the animal, the fucking big yellow vehicle.
Well, I gotta tell you, yeah, you continue with the write-up. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we could spend a whole nother day on Ruberg. I can't say Mr. or Miss because they them pronouns. So, the article then shifts to a light version of the New York Times article on the so-called alt-right rabbit hole, lamenting how the education system is woefully unprepared to deal with, quote, ideological radicalization and misinformation, which translates to students who already smell modern academia's bullshit. Professor Jordan Peterson is name-dropped, because of course he is. The article circles back to this vague fear college teachers have with Emma Vossen, who has a PhD in gender and games, stating, quote, this is about being afraid to give bad marks to students because they might go to their favorite YouTuber with a little bit of personal information about you that could be used to dox you.
How the fuck do you get a PhD in gender and games? Who paid for that?
You just visit Professor Ruberg and
taxpayers
I'm sure
did.
they can help you.
I think taxpayers did. I think if there's some publicly funded grants that were involved in this, yeah, this is a robust article here. This could have been its own show. Anyway, so the teachers are they're afraid not because this person is lying or spreading misinformation or isn't academically viable or whatever, but because the students might figure out they're full of shit and then they'll like go to a YouTuber which will share that out so that lets the whole world know how full of shit these intersectional humanities courses liberal arts teachers are. That's what their problem is.
And if their favorite YouTuber is someone who has the time to do a video about someone's bad marks in class, then that YouTuber has 38 subscribers.
I mean, the core of this article is really, you could tell it by the little tagline that it came with. You know, Gamergate comes to the classroom. Students used to be blank slates. Now they arrive with agendas.
Well, students have opinions now.
Now they're harder to brainwash.
What happened to those malleable lumps of clay that we were given, that we could shape into whatever form we want because we are gods and academia is the church?
Victim signaling because someone might tell the truth about you and not even pretending it isn't true.
YouTube is like this unaccountable. YouTube is like this unaccountable arbiter of morality. Let's report them to HR.
All right.
Well,
it gets even is an unaccountable. You know what I mean?
It gets even better or worse depending on your perspective. Towards the end of the article, a brave soul proposes a solution to this dreadful and life-threatening issue, and it's exactly what you think it is. Steve Wilcox, who teaches game design and development at Wilfrid Laurier University.
Oh.
Yes, that Wilfrid Laurier University.
Is that the Lindsay what's-her-name one? Yeah.
Lindsay Shepherd.
Oh, yes.
Lindsay Shepherd, yeah. Fucking Canadians.
Quote, helping people unlearn the biases and prejudices that they've learned from the internet, all the way up to the age of 18 or whenever they enroll in university. The issue is that they have a preconceived way of interpreting information, which then shapes how they interpret that data. If we started teaching students the basics of feminism at a very young age, they would have a far better appreciation for how different perspectives will lead to different outcomes and how the distribution of power and privilege in society can influence who gets to speak in the first place, end quote.
Oh my God.
And that's why feminists want to make sure they speak first. So
See,
that
kids,
you're
we just
too young to question what they're saying.
Need more feminism.
Oh my God. Helicopter whirring in the background. I want my license to fly one. I'm ready. I'm sorry, I don't want to get all Hassan Parker or anybody on anybody. I don't want any harm to come to anybody, but this stuff is really fucking infuriating. I mean, holy shit. We need more feminism earlier. Like, we should like have feminists teaching these lumps of cells as early as possible, right? Like right there in the hospital room waiting for the baby to be delivered should be the mother, the father, the doctors, the nurses, and a feminist academic. That's what
toxic masculinity starts in the testicles, Brian.
Holy shit.
I just wanted to read.
Of course, it's stored in there with a P.
I just wanted to read the last paragraph in this article,
Nobody
just
remembers
because
that.
it kind of.
Mhm.
I remember the P is
Okay.
stored in the balls. Come on, that's a classic. But yeah, the last article, or the last paragraph here. Wilcox says that the overwhelmingly masculine, anti-political, anti-education tone common to some spaces in games already dissuades marginalized groups from entering the profession in the first place. It's a vicious cycle in which the same hostile ideologies that make it difficult for other voices to enter the field continue to feed into each other and gatekeep. The problem ahead is a fickle one that requires a larger look at bias in culture and, more broadly, society.
So what they're
Buzzword
saying
soup.
is, it is, but what they're saying is, the world of gaming, or any sort of like subculture that's dominated by men, because remember, gaming is dominated by men. This is why they're not talking about areas that women occupy, or like in like a majority of numbers, because they're not, for whatever reason, that indoctrination they're not worried about. So it's dominated by men, and it says free as it gets. It's just like any other area that it's all about, you know, recreational activity, and there's a lot of people that have all these different kinds of interests. The thing about gaming is it is the largest entertainment industry that has ever existed. Like, not just like of all, like currently, that has ever existed, I think.
Yes. Yes. No. That's the truth. It's bigger than anything ever right now.
Ever.
TV.
Period.
Movies,
Yep.
Anything else, any book, anything else. It is the largest.
Yep. And feminists
It has lasted for a long time, but there have been very few people in history, and they didn't pay shit for it.
Yeah. And academic types, activist types that are either that work in colleges, like these people who, by the way, the Gamergate thing is just an invocation by them. I mean, yes, there are still people who don't like being told that, you know, we should make this thing that you're into political, but they're not hashtagging it. They're only invoking the name Gamergate because they know that the normies that look at this article will say, oh my God, how scary. I heard bad things. They raped women or something, right? They don't even remember. They just remember it was bad. It's like the 9/11 of the internet or something. But the thing is they know how big this is in terms of this entertainment industry. They know how influential it is. And they want to control it, and they can't stand that they can't, especially considering that the culture of gaming itself it's taken on a life of its own because it organically has sort of manifested. You know, if you like, if you look up anything on the internet, any game, you'll find that it comes with its own sort of like, you know, inside jokes, memes, and so on. Like, my wife plays Minecraft. I don't play it. And she watches Minecraft videos, and PewDiePie does Minecraft videos, and there's all these jokes associated with it. I don't understand, but I do know that I'm seeing something that has manifested naturally, as one example. But the point is, it's something that is, as it doesn't have a kind of top-down hierarchical structure. It's just people that love it that get involved, and they participate with free will and absolute freedom to do whatever within that subculture. And they can't stand that, because if they can't control it, then they can't shape the minds. For them, this is only about politics. This is the reason why there are women or academics that are getting PhDs in gaming or whatever it was that this person, Bonnie, supposedly has, and others, because they want to control that culture. They want to use that and weaponize those kids, and they can't stand that they can't do it. And so this is all about control, as you guys know, and this is the reason why it's so frustrating, because they know they can't, because if humans are left to do whatever they want, and it's just like a fun hobby, they are going to be dissident. They are going to resist when people tell them that what they're doing is bad. And so they have to like figure out a way to get ahead of that. My wife's in the chat. Minecraft does not suck. But you see, it's all about control is what I'm saying. And this is just, I can understand why this article is of such interest to Mike J. That's all I'm saying. It's ridiculous. Oh, by the way, somebody said the ghost of Gamergate. Gamergate's not a ghost. It's a lich, because the only way you can kill it is to find a phylactery, and no one has been able to find it yet. So yeah, it's not going anywhere. I mean, people might cringe and roll their eyes when they hear it, but the fact is, as a cultural phenomenon, it still exists, even if people don't use the hashtag. But anyway, I'm gonna get off my soapbox.
Every time somebody says Gamergate is dead, it keeps living for 2 more months somehow.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's like
Personally,
the second words used to resurrect its corpse are Gamergate is dead.
Yeah.
I think this is a reason to start supporting the abolition of public school system. For anybody that isn't already, because I mean, you've got other options now. You could step down, right, from what we've got now to a system where the same money that's spent on a public school system is spent in a voucher system, and then just wean the public off of a voucher system and let people pay for their own college and their own public education, their own high school, their own junior high, their own elementary school, right on down the line. I think it would be better for the students in the long run than this kind of indoctrination.
Agreed.
Well, this isn't public
You
school.
go to kindergarten.
It's college, though.
This is in college.
This
but
is college, but they're
yeah,
talking
but
about going back down to elementary school with this.
They
And,
are.
Yeah.
They
here
are.
you have kids trying to learn how to read, but instead they're going to learn feminism.
Well, they're already learning feminism in grammar school. This person isn't even like it already starts there. It starts as early in its own way. I think it starts as early as daycare, because I think that the majority of women that work in daycare are also feminists too. And
Probably.
and they kind of like in some way they bring that to that environment, even if they're, because they feel like this is going to sound bad, but if they're not themselves mothers of their own children, then they're just going to treat these children like they're theirs. And I've known lots of teachers who have said that you're like my kids, and they don't have kids. And so they feel like they need to teach them the right way to be, which is obviously is being a feminist. And I think that this person is a little bit wrong in saying we need to go back earlier, because it's already starts earlier. Maybe it's not intersectional that early. Maybe that's what they mean. I don't know. But yeah, they certainly want to do that. And I agree with Hannah. This, this is the problem with public schools for sure. And I'm not saying private schools are much better, but at least there, maybe it'd be more like we could treat it more like a meritocracy, where we just have the good teachers get rewarded and the feminist ones have to like step it up.
If nothing else, if you could just take your kid and leave anytime the school was that bad, if the teachers were indoctrinating the students instead of teaching them math and science and reading and stuff, your schools are going to have to at least compete for being good at that, and that's the important thing. And I mean, if people want a school where their kids are going to learn feminism, that's their business, but they don't have a right to enforce it on anybody else.
Yeah, I agree. And if they get control of gaming, which they're trying to do, and a lot of game devs, indie and mainstream AAA ones, they are trying to like push their shit into gaming. But ultimately what they would do is essentially use games as a form of education. And that will mean that it won't be fun. So they'll gamify their activism. I mean, look at there was one story I almost went with, but I had to like shave things down. There was the story about that we did years back about the Sesame credit system in China, which is essentially rewards people for good behavior as a Chinese citizen, and it penalizes people for bad behavior. And some of the things they penalize you for is, for example, criticizing the government, or you know, like not liking communism or whatever it is, right? And so they would penalize you, like you would have a harder time getting a loan. I mean, this is how it is there. It's extremely authoritarian and it's awful. And a lot of times the policing comes from the other citizens of China itself. It's like a self-made machine. It's like become its own organism. And they're trying to bring that over here. Like there are companies that do that. There are insurance companies that will, you know, they could deny you or they could raise their rates for you if they go to your social media posts and they see that you like smoke cigarettes or something, for example. So, you know, they would gamify life itself. And I know that sounds a little bit, maybe it sounds a little conspiratorial, but I don't think it is. I think that they already do that. You can see that manifesting on social media, which is its own social game that you have to play.
Oh, yeah. Call out culture kind of does that.
Is the catalyst word. Like, education is a euphemism for concentration. Education camp is a euphemism for concentration camp. And concentration camp is a euphemism. Does anyone even know?
No,
it's gone from our vocabulary already, hasn't it?
Yeah.
That weird.
Yeah, so it's crazy that they even think of these kids as people that should be like living the way that they want them to. It's just absolutely insane. So anyway, anybody have any final thoughts on this story? I'm gonna look at the super chats too because I missed some. All right. Ben gives us $2 and says, I'm getting flashbacks from my college days. I got in a lot of trouble with my professors. I argued with them all the time about feminism, but they still had to pass me. So Mr. Roboto gives us $2 and says, so no other razors for straight males to buy then? Well, there are. Yeah, sure.
Dollar Shave Club
and
Harry's
Harry's
razors.
Yep. Schick, whatever. You have a few options. Ben gives us $5 and says, I had two professors, I assume, that were so bad that I threatened to go to the admin to have them reprimanded or fired. These people are not educators. No, they're not. No.
They're indoctrinators.
Yeah. Mr. Roboto gives us $2 and says, only if masculist gets equal time. Okay, thank you guys for the super chats. Oh, and I just got another one. The Uncanny X-Man gives us $5 and says, hey guys, thanks for this amazing ICMI and thanks for putting the videos of the speakers online. Well, you're welcome. And we have, we're going to be working on the edited versions that'll be a little bit nicer, a little bit closer to semi-professional going up in the coming weeks. So, you know, subscribe to this channel. I think it'll go up on this one. I'd like it to, because I think this one should be bigger. But it could go to the main one as well. I don't really know. That's Allison's call. But anyway, thanks. All right, so let's move on to the next story. Let's see here. It's about Stan Lee's daughter. It was supposed to be a short one, but I ended up writing a long one because that's just the way I roll, I guess. While Sony and Disney dispute over the fate of Spider-Man, that is the rights. Countless fans of the Marvel Comics flagship character have all chimed in with their thoughts on the subject. One more interesting story is that of the late Spidey creator Stan Lee's daughter, Joan Celia, or JC Lee, we'll just call her JC Lee for the rest of this conversation, and her choice words on the subject. JC Lee has vocally sided with Sony on this dispute in an interview with TMZ, stating the following, quote, Marvel and Disney seeking total control of my father's creations must be checked and balanced by others who, while seeking to profit, have genuine respect for Stan Lee and his legacy. Whether it's Sony or someone else's, the continued evolution of Stan's characters and his legacy deserves multiple points of view. When my father died, no one from Marvel or Disney reached out to me. From day one, they have commoditized my father's work and never shown him or his legacy any respect or decency. In the end, no one could have treated my father worse than Marvel and Disney's executives. Kind of a hot take, and I thought worthy of bringing up. So now there are a lot of criticisms that many would like to sling at both Sony and Disney with regards to this incident, depending on what side you happen to be on. From the reports that stated Disney wanted a larger take than the agreed upon 50-50 split on the profits, to Sony wanting to continue the current deal, which grants Disney 5% of the first sale dollar gross. And yeah, it's really tempting to throw Disney under the bus here, considering how they killed Star Wars. I mean, killed it. And will likely kill the MCU in the coming years with their inevitable wokeness incoming, coupled with an oversaturation of the market that makes Activision's handling of the Guitar Hero franchise look like Valve's treatment of Half-Life. I get it. The mouse deserves most of the shit it gets, and I wouldn't be surprised if what JC Lee is saying was true. However, remember, we did a story in October of last year, one where there were reports that Stan Lee's daughter, JC, was herself abusive. Since then, much of that story has only become more convoluted, with some reports stating that it was Stan's manager, Kaya Morgan, his publicist, Jerry Olivares, and his road manager, Max Anderson, that supposedly took advantage of Stan Lee's final years, and that his daughter was innocent, according to her lawyer. Still, others say that JC Lee was emotionally abusive to Stan. She would raise her voice at him, yell at him, which is something that she herself admitted to, and would always come around to ask Stan for money when she would run out. She was basically kind of like a codependent leech. The truth is always uncertain, but I think I will not be doing an end zone dance just because Stan Lee's daughter speaks out against the mouse when she may have been a part of his problems. So I saw that a lot of people were talking about this story, and I just wanted to like put a little bit of focus on the person making these that's standing up, and kind of in my own mind, it sounds like she's virtue signaling a little bit while defending her father from the mouse. And again, I know that, you know, Disney doesn't get a lot of love here, but remember that JC Lee was kind of shitty to her dad too. So that's all I wanted to say about that. I'll let you guys have the floor if you guys have any comments, or maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Maybe there's more info that I didn't get.
You know, it's possible for two things to be right at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
It can be that, you know, she was not the best person that she could be to her father. But it can also be right that Marvel and Disney have kind of fucked up too in their own ways of treating Stan Lee.
I agree. I think that he was surrounded by people that wanted to use him to make a lot of money. Whether it was her daughter just leeching off of him, the people around him, because he was getting really old and he depended on other people to like help him, you know, with his company and his finances and his legacy too. Because his wife died, he didn't have, that was his like his rock, right? And so it was just him by himself, surrounded by people that, you know, he was unclear on their motivations. And yeah, I think it's absolutely true that Disney doesn't give a shit about Stan Lee, but Sony doesn't probably give a shit about him either. They just want to see what they can get out of him. And I think that JC Lee to suddenly become like the noble heroine, I mean, again, it's possible that I think it's likely that all of them were part of the problem.
And it's a really tough thing. I think I've talked about this before. I don't know if you guys can hear me because It looks like I'm losing my connection. Oh,
no, I can hear back. You sound fine.
I told on Discord and it came back. Haha. But so I've seen something like this from maybe a lower income perspective than this particular family. But just from my experience, when you have a family member who has made more money than the rest of the family, and maybe has a special talent that people might want to use or capitalize on, or has done something special that people might want to use or capitalize on, even things like family heirlooms that other family members might want to capitalize on, you end up with a lot of convoluted bullshit that goes on in your family. And it can be everybody accusing everybody of everything, and none of what you hear might be true. Everybody might be inserting their own perspective and seeing the worst in their family members. And I mean, family members yell at each other. If you've lived in a family all of your life and there has never been yelling even once in your house, there's something weird about your family. You know, it's what happens when people live in close proximity to each other and they get used to each other and they're not constantly trying to impress each other. So it's hard to judge another family from a distance because of all of that. I mean, I've had to protect a family member from being robbed blind by another family member, and make sure that family member, the family member I was protecting, that their money was spent on their needs and their care and their interests, and that nobody was taking it and it was all accounted for and things like that. And for doing that, I got called a thief, even though none of that money came to me. And that was basically the perspective of the individual against whose theft I was protecting my family member. And if that makes sense, and you see somebody going through that, and you see it from the perspective of the thief, they're going to feel that their rightful inheritance has been taken away, or they're going to feel that they earned what they were trying to take, and then they didn't get it because of you. And it's really like, I don't want to judge somebody's family on the basis of what ends up in the news, unless there is real solid evidence that comes forward that somebody has done something or didn't do something they should do, etc. So I guess the thing to do is to just take what she said at face value and consider it against what is known of Stan Lee. What would he have wanted in this situation? Would he have wanted the two companies fighting tooth and nail over who gets to make the most money out of Spider-Man? Or, would he wanted to see maybe them working together to make something great out of their new use of the character, and using the character correctly in conjunction with, how he has always been portrayed. So it's kind of, I guess that's it. What she said wasn't wrong. What she did, I don't think really necessarily has anything to do with it. And who she is doesn't necessarily have any bearing on whether it's right or wrong.
All right. Yeah, fair enough. Anybody else have any other thoughts? Okay. So the next story, I haven't gotten the thing from Andrew yet, so I'll just keep going. This is an opinion piece that I saw going around as well, that people were responding to. Queer feminist and NBC HuffPo columnist cancels heterosexuality itself. So, in an absolutely mainstream opinion piece on NBC News's Think page, which is sort of like their opinion analysis and essay page, feminist political lesbian, no, I'm not making fun of her, that's just what she is, Marcy Bianco uses recent events such as the Dayton and El Paso mass shootings to the Jeffrey Epstein story to the recent breakup of Miley Cyrus and Liam Hemsworth, something I didn't even knew or cared about, to musician and actress Julianne Hough announcing she is, quote, not straight, to her bewildered NHL husband, Brooks Like, that's Julianne's husband. She told that to him to put forward an idea. So she uses all of that to put forward an idea. As the status quo, heterosexuality is just not working. She states the following, quote, as a snapshot of 2019 America, these stories present a startling picture. Men continue to coerce, harass, rape, and kill girls and women, and go to extreme lengths to avoid responsibility for their actions. On the other side of the issue, girls and women are challenging heterosexuality and even absconding from it altogether. She continues, framed differently, the picture is this. Men need heterosexuality. Men need heterosexuality to maintain their societal dominance over women. Women, on the other hand, are increasingly realizing that not only that they don't need heterosexuality, but that it also is often the bedrock of their global oppression.
So brave.
So her galaxy brain take continues. Patriarchy is at its most potent when oppression doesn't feel like oppression. What? Or when it is packaged in terms of biology, religion, or basic social needs like security, comfort, acceptance, and success. Don't forget procreation.
You know, Brian, fire is the most dangerous when it doesn't look or feel like a fire.
Heterosexuality offers women all of these things as selling points to their consensual subjection. Historically, women have been conditioned to believe that heterosexuality is natural or innate, just as they have been conditioned to believe that their main purpose is to make babies. And if they fail to do so, they are condemned as not real or as bad women. So my question is this: is anybody gonna tell her that heterosexual sex is how she got here?
I just wonder if anybody has told her that when she invades the men's room because the line to the ladies is too long, that she should not eat the mints that are sitting in the urinals or on urinals. Because it sounds like she had a few too many.
Also, I want to mention something really briefly on top of that. She says men need heterosexuality to maintain their societal dominance over women, and that they continue to coerce, harass, rape, and kill girls and women. Yet, in domestic violence situations, lesbians win.
Hang on a second. So heterosexuality dominates women, right? But men dominate women by women wanting men, but when they have sex, it's rape, right? So obviously men don't need heterosexuality to dominate women because they can just use rape.
No, that's just patriarchy that is so potent that it doesn't feel like oppression. That's all that is.
And am I just imagine, like, heterosexuality does not dominate women. There's quite a fucking lot of bisexual women out there, by the way. Like,
there's also a huge
it's almost
industry.
Like more of a rarity to be a straight woman than a bisexual. Is it just me?
Well, there's two kinds of bisexual women. There's women who are bisexual, and then there's women who are only bisexual when they're drunk. And of course, that's not rape. But in any case,
women who are only bisexual when it's politically
correct. Well, no, they're political lesbians, which is another word for fake lesbian, but they don't admit that. I've had enough experience with political lesbians to make you puke. Just because the first thing they do when they run into a chick that's bisexual is tell you how brainwashed you are and how you're actually being raped by your husband or boyfriend, if you have one, if you're not in a relationship with a gal at the time, or if you've ever been in a relationship with a guy. That was all in your mind. He had brainwashed you, and you have escaped from the patriarchy now that you're with a woman. They're absolutely batshit crazy.
Yeah.
Like, there are lesbians who are completely peaceful, don't want anything to do with the LGBT movement, or they support everybody's right to just be themselves without being judged. At least not in such a way as you do something rotten to them, violate their rights because of who they are. But they don't turn around and do all of the shit that the third wave feminists and the intersectionalists are doing. And you almost will never run into them because they're quiet and they just live their lives, and they don't get in people's way, and they don't want people to get in their way, and that's it. But then you have these political lesbians and rad femmes who are lesbians, who are angry that men even exist, much less have any kind of anything near equal footing with women in society. And they turn everything around in their minds. Their ability to use their sexuality to manipulate men is an act of being dominated by men somehow. Their ability to use their neoteny to get out of responsibility for things in society that men take responsibility for, like breaking up fatbergs in the sewers. They're too delicate and fragile, right? They don't have to do that. If that job becomes available and they take it, nobody's going to judge them if they can't pay their bills because they took a lower paying job than that one. But if they were men, they would. And they don't have any problem with that. That's okay, because men are workhorses to them. I mean, they just absolutely hate, detest, and hold utter disdain for men. And I have no respect at all for political lesbians. I feel like they would probably be better off in an institution. A lot of them. Almost everyone that I've met.
She just wants to liberate women from heterosexuality itself and save them from that pesky perpetuating the species thing.
And these are the people leading the LGBTQ movement, by the way, and have been for several. I want wonder if it's a coincidence that that particular movement has gone off the rails and lost so much popularity over the last generation.
I think it started because we did an interview with a guy. Now that you mention it, I think it was in 2016. There was one of the guys that worked on American circumcision. So maybe it was 2017. No, it was 2017. And I remember it was 2016. I'm sorry. Anyway, he was a gay man that wanted to talk about circumcision. And he was talking about how at the time the LGBT community, the acronym was actually GLB, and I don't even think they had a T yet, and that feminist lesbians, political lesbians, they kind of like took over, whether they were real lesbians or just political ones, whatever, but they kind of took over, and that's why they put the L first, because if you like go through the entire acronym and you like really logically break it down, it shouldn't be that many letters. It really shouldn't. But
gay activism started with men, to be honest.
Of course, yes, they were the pioneers. Absolutely.
Women who were gay, women who were lesbians were a novelty. People might worry about them if they didn't, if they were in an area where it was more common, where it was less common, then people would be suspicious of them and there would be misconceptions and everything, but they weren't dragged out of their bars and beaten up. They weren't targeted for discrimination. They weren't kicked out of their jobs on the level that gay men were. There were women that would be fired from teaching school if they were lesbians. But if you were working in a factory, you weren't as likely. If you were working in one of the textile mills, you weren't as likely to. Nobody gave a shit as long as you did your job. But if you were male and gay, your neighbors might kick the shit out of you. Your local law enforcement might actually arrest you and put you in jail. Historically, there have been laws against gay male sex for centuries. There hasn't necessarily been the same level of legal approach to gay female sex. It really was a nobody cared situation. And there was a fight for acceptance by lesbians. There was a fight for acceptance by bisexual women, but it was nothing compared to what men had to do. And I think the T belongs in that an acronym more than the L. And the only reason the B really belongs in there is because bisexual men get mistreated. You know who has it the easiest?
Bisexual women. Yeah.
We fit in everywhere. We're not just a novelty. I mean, there's porn of bisexuality in women. It's the idea of it, and it's not just porn for other bisexual women. Like gay porn is mostly porn for gay men, right? Lesbian porn is mostly porn for straight men. Bisexual porn seems to be for everybody. The idea that a woman can be completely free in her sexuality and so on. I mean, it's not necessarily like real life, right? But it's still this idea of freedom. When you turn around and a bisexual guy is likely to get shit on from all angles, and including by lesbians. How dare you invade the straight world and go after women? Just be gay. So the idea that women even really have a need for the movement, which when I was in school, it was the gay rights movement, and then the rainbow movement, and then GLB, then GLBT, then LGBT in my area. And before all of that, before I was, old enough to pay attention to it, it was years ago, Lavender Lads. It was everything that's been won for that movement has been won on the backs of gay men and trans women, not cis women.
Yeah.
I know many bisexual women. In fact, I think most of, not just the honey badgers, but the women in the honey badger Discord are in fact bisexual.
Yeah, my wife's a bit gay.
A great deal of the women I speak to just anyway are bisexually inclined, but very few of them, at least the ones I speak to, would ever have the nerve to speak for the LGBTQ community, including, because like Hannah, they're not privileged, or they are privileged. They're far more privileged than gay men have ever been, and insulting and almost indiscreet for them to speak for gay men or any like collective victim ideology. Then, right?
Yeah. I got some super chats. I'm going to go through real quick. Mr. Roboto gives us $2, and this is in reference to JC Lee. He says, she is best case, just spoiled a second, a non-nerd. Ryan Schill gives us $1.99. This is in reference to this article. He says, is she saying homosexuality is a choice? Yes. They have been saying that for a while now. They've moved away from the born this way narrative that was, I'm fine with, and they moved on to it's all socialized, it's a choice, which means that, what this woman is advocating for, and is another thing I wanted to bring up, is essentially saying that women should be conditioned into homosexuality to rescue them from men. But that means it's like going back to the old pray the gay away, or sending gays to camps where they learn to be straight and essentially like to suppress their homosexual urges. This is basically that, just flipped. And this is something that's been going on.
Pray for the gay to stay.
Yes, pray for the gay to stay. That's correct. And so, like,
Lobo homo.
This is literally what's going on with that. And the fact that they're pushing forward the idea that this stuff is all socialized, and that means that it can be malleable and changed and shifted, they're actually giving ammunition for people that that think that you can pray the gay away to actually sort of like resurface after all the work we did to essentially say, look, leave people alone to just be as they are, and that let them sort their own shit out. Even if they are confused, even if they're going through, it can be a tough thing, I assume, for people. I mean, I knew I was straight like when I was 6, but but like depends on the person, right? But yeah, that's what this is. So I think, yes, she is saying homosexuality is a choice, and I think that that's a scary idea, but it's not an uncommon one. This is not extreme. I see this a lot, especially with these intersectional SJWs, because I think that they hate the idea that people are born this way, because it means that there's something you cannot socialize, and they can't stand biological determinism, so they have to push back against it, because it's not really that they can prove it either way. It's mainly because they don't like that tactically it doesn't give them the ammunition they need for other things that they want to push on us. So Ciarda Flora gives us $2 and says, also they are kink shaming. Yeah. Exploding Printing at Work gives us $2 and says, hey, remember that attraction is political, dudes. Yes, that's right. Also, be sure to bang trans women. So that otherwise you're a transphobe. Ciarda Flora gives us $5 and says, my sister hates the fact that I'm bi. She dumped a guy who was very sweet, who was bi because he's been with a man before. Rico Champagne gives us $5 Canadian and says, check out Diana Davidson's of Feminism LOL's new channel, Untrue Crime. Did she rename her old channel, or did she literally make a brand new channel? I actually interviewed Diana Davidson at ICMI 2019, so she didn't tell me anything about that. Anyway, that's it for the super chats. Anyone else have any other thoughts on this story? No? I
just want to say the chick that dumped a bisexual guy because he had been with another guy did him a favor. She obviously did it early enough in the relationship that they were not married, didn't have finances together and stuff like that, so there was nothing to sort out, and he could move on to somebody who was comfortable with that. And male or female, if you're not comfortable with someone's sexual history, you have that right. And that's the same goes for a guy who doesn't want to be with a woman because she has had a shitload of sex partners, or even one before him. That's his right. And so I wouldn't judge somebody for that. But it's best that does happen early enough in the relationship that you haven't mixed up a bunch of stuff that you're going to have to sort out later on. It's one of the good reasons to get all that information out into the open before you get to the part of the relationship where you cohabitate, whether that is before or after marriage.
All right. So I never heard back from Andrew, so I'm just going to go through the article. This will be the last story. Actually, we're on really good time. Thanks, guys. Let us know what you guys think about the stories in the comment section. I'd like to hear your thoughts on all of these. This one is actually the biggest one, which is weird that Andrew didn't get me the write-up, but the Huffington Post is suing for defamation over Kavanaugh report, or they're getting sued. I'm sorry. A former high school classmate of Brett Kavanaugh filed a lawsuit last week against the Huffington Post and its former journalist Ashley Feinberg for repeatedly making false and defamatory claims about him and a friend during the uncorroborated, accusation-riddled confirmation process of the since-confirmed Supreme Court justice. In this lawsuit filed in U.S. District Court on Wednesday, plaintiff Derek Evans, an African-American professor from Gulfport, Mississippi, who went to Georgetown Prep with Kavanaugh after earning a full scholarship to the school, accuses Feinberg of defaming him and friend Douglas Kennedy in a report published by HuffPost in September of 2018. The report, originally titled Brett Kavanaugh's Prep School Party Scene Was a Free-for-All, claims that Evans and Kennedy helped arrange the purchase and delivery of cocaine to Georgetown Prep that ultimately led to the death of David Kennedy, Douglas's brother and the son of former U.S. Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy, in April of 1984, the Mississippi Clarion Ledger reported Thursday. Evans is accusing HuffPost of either knowingly publishing false and defamatory claims, or at best, reckless disregard of the truth. I'm kind of leaning towards the latter there. These statements were not only false and defamatory, but outrageously so, and were published by defendants with knowledge of their actual falsity or in reckless disregard of the truth for the apparent purpose of creating a salacious story designed to drive internet traffic to HuffPost's website, the lawsuit charges. I think it's more insidious than that, but whatever. Defendants had no sources to support their outrageously false and defamatory statements about Derek Evans and Douglas Kennedy, the lawsuit states. Nor do defendants make any effort whatsoever to contact Mr. Evans for comment before accusing him of not only committing a crime, but of being responsible for the death of David Kennedy. Indeed, if Miss Feinberg or her Huffington Post editors had done even the most basic research of publicly available sources, she and they would have known, if they did not already know, that Mr. Evans actively assisted law enforcement in identifying and prosecuting the individuals who actually sold the illegal narcotics. The lawsuit points out that after being contacted by Evans, HuffPost initially issued a correction, but the correction itself contained false info. The initial correction read as follows, quote, "This article previously stated incorrectly that Doug Kennedy was involved in helping his brother to purchase drugs in 1984. Kennedy was only sharing a room with Derek Evans, who helped David purchase the drugs, according to an affidavit obtained by the New York Times. We regret the error," end quote. That correction was another complete fabrication published by HuffPost, with actual knowledge that both it and the original publication were false or in reckless disregard of the truth, again without ever attempting to contact Mr. Evans for comment, the lawsuit asserts. As HuffPost knew, there was no affidavit reflecting that Mr. Evans ever helped anyone purchase illegal drugs. Defendants had no such affidavit in their possession, and they could not have had such an affidavit in their possession. The site eventually revised the report to remove all reference to Evans and Douglas Kennedy and included the following correction at the bottom of the piece. Quote, "This article previously mischaracterized the involvement of individuals in a drug purchase. References to those individuals and the incident have been removed. We regret the error. Additionally, certain references by the former student to specific individuals have been removed to better reflect the intended purpose of the article, to provide a former student's general characterizations of the party culture," end quote. Evans, who has since gone on to earn distinctions as a history professor and found a nonprofit to address hurricane damage in the Gulf Coast, is suing for emotional distress and reputational harm for what his attorney describes as, quote, "false, malicious, and fabricated claims published with a knowing, intentional, subjective awareness of and or reckless disregard of their falsity, end quote. A Huffington Post spokesperson, told the Clarion Ledger that it would not comment on pending litigation. After a series of increasingly outrageous sexual misconduct accusations, none of which were corroborated and many of which were quickly discredited, Brett Kavanaugh was confirmed as Supreme Court Justice in October of 2018. A month later, the Senate Judiciary Committee released its summary report and exhibits regarding the allegations. In the summary of its findings, the committee explained that after speaking with 45 individuals, taking 25 written statements, and working with 40 attorneys, law clerks, and other professionals, the committee did not find any evidence to substantiate or corroborate any of the allegations against Kavanaugh. Okay, last paragraph. After an extensive investigation that included the thorough review of all potentially credible evidence submitted and interviews of more than 40 individuals with information relating to the allegations, including classmates and friends of all of those involved, committee investigators found no witness who could provide any verifiable evidence to support any of the allegations brought against Justice Kavanaugh. The committee concluded. In other words, following the separate and extensive investigations by both the committee and the FBI, there was no evidence to substantiate any of the claims of sexual assault made against Justice Kavanaugh. All right. So there is a lawsuit. I don't know where it's going to go, but that's what's going on. So I guess I'll just leave it to you guys because my mouth is tired. I mean, if you have any comments.
And to think all of this could have been avoided if we hadn't had all those drug laws. They would have been accusing them of absolutely nothing. Wouldn't matter if it was true or not, because it wouldn't have been a crime. But this pretty much, some of it's new news and some of it's old news. The new news is that there's a lawsuit coming out of it. Mm-hmm. The old news is that the Huffington Post is a yellow journalistic tabloid that does nothing but print sensationalistic shit without bothering to verify it.
Mm-hmm.
And you really can't, anything that you read in the Huffington Post, obviously you need to look for another source to verify it before condemning anybody based on it or making any life decisions based on the information, because clearly they don't verify anything that they print.
Yeah, the way that they describe it as the Huffington Post doing this to creating outrage to create clicks, I think is a little bit nice. I wouldn't describe them so pleasantly. I would say that they are maliciously trying to ruin people because they are activists and not journalists. And they have a political bias. It comes out in everything that they put out there. They put out content that is specifically engineered to alter people's opinions to match theirs. And that's not simply being clickbait. Like TMZ is clickbait. World Star Hip Hop is clickbait. I don't think that they have so much a political agenda, although they may have political opinions, but it does not inform what they put out. And yeah, I would argue that the Daily Wire, which is what we're citing here, is also they also are politically biased as well. This is why it's important to try to get multiple sources and make up your own mind. And we shouldn't have to do things that way, but journalism was probably one of the first things to go once the SJWs invaded it. So
it's like that old saying, trust but verify, except in the case of reading the print media and the news media, televised media, never trust and always verify.
Mm-hmm. All right.
So on one hand, I kind of hope this thing goes through, but on the other, I'm totally preparing for another Nick Sandman case where the judge basically just goes, well, this wasn't so bad because, I mean, the HuffPost isn't actual news, so they shouldn't be held to the same standard.
Oh, that would
depends
suck.
on how it was written, because you got to remember the Nick Sandman thing. what he said was that was an opinion piece. It wasn't presented as fact. It was presented as that guy's opinion. What he was suing over was presented as that guy's. Now, if that's true, if the judge was talking about something that was actually an opinion piece, that's not a bad ruling. If it was something where the guy said in the middle of an opinion piece, these things are facts and my opinion is based on them, then it was a bullshit ruling. But in this case, yeah, you'd have to have this sort of concern if the judge turns around and says the entire Huffington Post is an opinion paper, then they can get away with saying anything.
I mean, I if they do that and then they make that like like a very public statement, then we can always just no one can cite it anymore. We can just say,
that's what I'm getting at.
You get away with saying, well, it's the Huffington.
You're citing HuffPo? Well,
yeah.
Let me tell you about this judge's ruling.
Exactly. They may as well call themselves the Onion Po or something.
Their real name is Muff Po. We all know that.
That's good. That's good. All right. Any other thoughts on this story? Okay, so let me see if there's any more super chats. I did get one from Rico Champagne, $2 Canadian. He says, it is a new channel. That is in reference to Diana Davidson's channel, known as Untrue Crime. I'll check it out. I will subscribe. I did not know. Thanks, Diana, for telling me about it when we spoke the other day. Anyway, so yeah, if there's no other thoughts, I guess we'll just wrap this up and head into the after show, where I will have people choose between this article from Wired. It's a little old, but it could still be fun to look through, called Actually Gender Neutral Pronouns Can Change a Culture. And it actually says the value of genderless pronouns is not in mere political correctness. They can give people new, more inclusive ways of seeing the world. Or we can do a dramatic reading of Zoe Quinn's long saga of abuse and other weirdness that came after this guy, Jeremy Soule, was Me Too'd by this insane feminist named Nathalie Lawhead. Call her Towhead. So yeah, with that said, that's what we're going to do. So I want to, first of all, say if you guys want to be a part of that, you have to become a Badger. So you go to feedthebadger.com and start a monthly subscription. $5 gets you into the Discord. It also lets you watch the shows. And if you want to give out and there's other stuff that goes on. I mean, Mike J sets up these game nights. I think it's like twice a week, right?
I do. We have regular game nights scheduled at Thursday at 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And occasionally on Saturdays, we do have bonus game nights. And those are, like I said, Saturday, usually somewhere between 10 and 11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
Yeah. There you go. And
we've also got out, because Darth will never let me live this down if I don't say it. We also have Cards Against Humanity, and that's scheduled for whenever the after show ends tonight. On Tuesdays after the after show for the HBR News. So
and it's
come on, it's not too late. Yeah, it's always
fun. Tuesdays
Hannah's
and
there
Thursdays.
usually.
Yeah.
Oh, we actually no, we have co-visitation rights with Hannah. So
yeah,
one week Darth will get her, and then next week I'll get her for game night.
Because on the alternating weeks I have to leave and go to work.
Yeah. So do that. And also, I saw someone said, Tyler Preston says, does anybody actually take anything Zoe Quinn says seriously? I'm not going to. I think it's going to be hilarious to read because honestly, I don't believe a goddamn thing that woman says. And I could be wrong. She could be telling the truth, but she has lied too many times for me to care. I'm willing to be wrong for that. This could be quite fun. So it will be because her writing, it's so fucking dramatic. You know what it is? It's just
is this a first person narrative?
Yes, it's a first it's a blog post or some thread about this guy that this indie developer that just brought this poor woman into his world of depravity and how she couldn't escape and we'll get into it in the after show. If we decide to go that road.
If we're gonna need that, we're gonna need Hannah to read this.
Oh yes,
EP voice, and we're gonna need some sad piano music.
A really small violin. But So anyway, yeah, if you want to be a part of the after show, become a badger. $5 a month gets you into the Discord, and there are other levels. You can you can watch the shows, the after shows. You can be a part of the conversation. Some of the after shows are accessible to everybody, depending on what we do beforehand. Yeah, consider doing that. So with that said, we're going to close out this episode of the HBR News Show. Please give us a like, subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, and leave us a comment. Let us know what you guys think about all these stories. And that is it for me. I want to thank you guys for coming on. I want to thank my co-hosts, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one.